Hey guys, Triple B here. The Pokemon TCG World Championships just concluded over in Hawaii, and we're going to take a look at the top 8 decks coming out of it. The first one we're going to be talking about is Regidrago Vstar. Very interesting card, and surprising it didn't see a lot of play up until recently. Its attack Apex Dragon lets you copy the attack of any dragon Pokemon that's in your discard pile, giving it access to a number of very interesting attackers, especially new ones coming out of the recent set Shrouded Fable. So we did get a new Kyurem card that has the attack Trifrost. You discard all energy from the Pokemon when they use this, but you get to do 110 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, meaning if they don't have something like Manaphy in play to protect their bench, you can take easy knockouts into low HP Pokemon or start setting numbers up for other Pokemon to follow up KOs into. The nice thing too is Kyurem can actually be an attacker since its ability makes it so that you can use the attack Trifrost for just 1 colorless energy as long as your opponent has a card with the name Chorus in their discard pile, so you aren't just fully reliant on Regidrago Vstar as an attacker in here. We also have access to Ogerpon that can be a secondary attacker in the list, as you're typically using Teal Dance to attach a grass energy to this, drawing a card, then using Energy Switch, getting it onto a Regidrago to start charging it up, but its attack Myriad Leaf Shower can also be relevant. You can just attach another grass for turn, then the following turn attach another one to it, or potentially have 2 Ogerpons in play, Teal Dance to both of them, attach for turn 1, E-Switch to it. You're hitting weakness into Charizard, so it's pretty relevant. But for the main part, you want to be using Regidrago as your attacker. You have access to things like Dragapult EX, who has Phantom Dive, doing 200 damage and putting 6 damage counters onto your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way that you'd like. Can be really helpful. A lot of pre-evolution Pokemon, though, do have 70 HP, so if you could get just 1 extra damage counter onto their bench to take those out easily, you'd be in a good spot, and we do have the ability to do that by using Hawlucha, which puts 1 damage counter onto 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So it's like, hey, there's 2 Charmanders on your bench. Well, now ping that, they're down to 60. Dragapult's gonna hit the active, ideally taking a KO into something, putting 6 damage counters on one of their Charmanders, and it's gone now. Yeah, not bad, not bad. Also really helpful just being able to set up some counters, softening things up so that you can take them out with other attacks. We also have Giratina Vstar in here, having the Lost Impact attack, doing a straight 280 damage, which can be really useful to take out other Pokemon Vstar. Regidrago having exactly 280 HP, Giratina have exactly 280 HP, or if you put counters out with Dragapult, maybe like 5 onto something, 280, altogether that's 330, you're taking out things like Charizard EX in that way as well. The second attack on here though, Star Requiem, you do need to have 10 cards in the Lost Zone to use it, which technically you can get there since Lost Impact puts 2 energy cards into the Lost Zone, but by the time you're doing that, the game's over. So yeah, you're just using this for Lost Impact. The final attack that Regidrago can access is Goodra Vstar's Rolling Iron. You're going to do 200 damage and take 80 less damage from attacks on your opponent's next turn. So it's a great way to half hit into something and then make it so your opponent has to gust around you, or they're going to half hit into you, or ideally do a third of a hit into you. It's really great to be able to use that when you can. We also have access to Mew EX in here, having the restart ability so that you can just draw until you have 3 cards in your hand once per turn. Also has free retreat, so makes it a great pivot option. When one of your Pokemon's knocked out, just chuck Mew in the active, and then you can like think for a second like, oh, well, can I get another Regidrago online, or do I just need to buy a bit of time? Put Mew in the active, you get that pivot option. It does also have the attack Genome Hacking for 3 colorless energy. You get to choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. Since we do have Energy Switch, you can be Energy Switching onto Mew from something like Ogerpon, attaching for turn, maybe using second Energy Switch since we do have 4 in the deck, and could be copying attacks from your opponent's Pokemon when you're in a pinch, right? Like Regidrago, you need to evolve up into it to get it online, whereas Mew, you can just charge it up. You could go into them, maybe in the mirror match, your opponent's running Regidrago Vstar, it's sat in the active with Apex Dragon, Mew can copy that and then use one of your attacks from the discard pile. Could be really interesting. Other utility Pokemon in here, we do have Pheasantipity EX, also coming out of Shrouded Fable. Its Flip the Script ability allows you to draw 3 cards as long as one of your Pokemon was knocked out by your opponent on their last turn. It also has an attack costing 3 colorless energy, similar to Mew, so we could charge it up in the same way, and allows you to do 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon in play. And we also have Squawkabilly EX, a great way to discard our attackers. Having Squawk and Seize, you're going to discard your whole hand and draw until you have 6 cards. You can only use it on the first turn of the game though, so you want to make sure you're getting into this early. Having things like Nest Ball and Ultra Ball to guarantee you into it is really clutch, and just, yeah, also helps get into your attackers. Well, getting your attackers into the discard so that Regidrago can get into your attackers. The rest of the deck though, it's pretty standard stuff. You've got solid draw support and research in Iono, Boss's Order for Gust. Professor Turo's Scenario can be really helpful, especially since we do have Rolling Iron. You can make Regidrago tank a hit and then scoop it up with Turo. Really helpful in key situations. Earthen Vessel, meaning we can discard our Pokemon from our hand, getting into energy as we need them. Regidrago needing fire energy as well as grass to get online. Only having 3 fire in the deck means, hey, ditch an attacker, get into your fire, get into your grass, or get into your grass so that Ogerpon can draw some cards and get the energy into play. Really useful stuff there. For the A spec, we did go with Prime Catcher, obviously a really solid Gust option, and also including a copy of Canceling Clone. This means we could use something like Boss's Orders or Counter Catcher, not Counter Catcher, Prime Catcher, to get our opponent's Manaphy into the active, then copy Kurum's attack from the discard pile and go 110 to 3 things. So really clutch. You can even be hitting the Manaphy in the active while taking 2 things out on the bench. Also, having a copy of Temple of Sinnoh in here is really useful just to be able to shut off opponents' special energies. They can have them in play. They're going to count as colorless energy though, and that's it. So like DTE, it's just 1 colorless energy. Mist energy, removing the effects of attacks, that's gone now. I don't think there's really any effects in this build though that we care about, but it's just one of those things to keep in mind. For the 7th place deck, we see Ian Robb, also on Regidrago Vstar. Pretty similar deck here. I think the main differences are he had a Radiant Charizard in here just as a late game attacker, only needing 1 fire energy to get online once your opponent's taken 4 prize cards, and makes it so you can have a single prize Pokemon in the active. So it's kind of skewing the prize trade in your favor if they have to knock this out and can't gust around you. The other inclusion in here was Night Stretcher. So it's just a great way to be able to get an energy back from the discard pile in a pinch, or get a Pokemon back from the discard pile in a pinch. Like maybe your Regidragos, you went a little aggressive early in the game, you had to discard them off like research before you had Regidrago V's in play, you want to get the Vstar back, you can do that. Or if your Pheasantipity EX got taken out, you can get it back. Or even Charizard, maybe you had to discard it a little too early. So having that just as a way to recur your Pokemon, it can be really useful. The rest of the deck though, I'm pretty sure it's about the same. I think the main difference is there's 1 less copy of Boss's Orders in here, and I'm not sure what else they cut to make space for the other edition, right? Because we've got this and we've got this. They got 2 extra cards that were in there. Let me know in the comments below what I'm missing here. In 6th place though, we are seeing James Goreing piloting Rigatoni EX. Love to see it, James. He's a local player based in South Australia, same as me. I've been playing with him for, I want to say about 5 years. Well, he's been playing longer than that. I've only really been in the scene that long. Absolute pivotal player, or pillar of the community, based in Adelaide here. So yeah, if you're from South Australia and you don't know James, what are you doing? Absolute legend. Was a pleasure getting to catch him on stream. Actually ended up hopping on Twitch to stream it live when I saw he was on. I was like, no, I gotta watch this. This is gonna be good. And yeah, it was an amazing game to be able to watch him make his way into the top 8. Unfortunately, didn't make it all the way to the finals, but hey, finishing 6th out of the top of the world, like that's epic. How many other people can say that? Not too many people, 5 other people. He beat everybody else, so like, yeah, no one else can talk smack. But yeah, Rigatoni EX, or Raging Bolt EX, I guess if you're not in the know, having the Bellowing Thunder attack. It does a multiplier of 70. You're gonna discard any amount of basic energy from your Pokemon in play to do 70 damage for each energy you choose to discard. Comboing this with Ogerpon EX, who can get grass energy onto itself, so you're using Teal Dance, having multiples of these in play, going Teal Dance, Teal Dance, Teal Dance, attach a lightning energy for turn to Raging Bolt, then you're going to use Professor Sada, get a fighting energy onto Raging Bolt, and ideally another energy onto another Raging Bolt, set up a secondary attacker. You can be doing some pretty scary numbers as early as the 2nd turn of the game. So if you go 2nd, your 1st turn of the game, you can be taking some big knockouts, which is terrifying. Also having the Ogerpon, which you can use as an attacker, so when you're hitting weakness into things like Roaring Moon EX or Charizard EX, this can be a great option to go into. Seeing Squawkabilly in here again, Pheasantipity EX, and then also the inclusion of Radiant Greninja. So concealed cards, you're going to discard an energy from your hand, draw 2 cards. You want energy in the discard pile for Professor Sada to be able to recur them onto your Raging Bolt. You want to draw cards because drawing cards is good. It's a great inclusion in here. And as a single prize attacking option, there is also a Sandy Shock. So its attack Magnetic Burst does a base damage of 20, but 70 more damage if you have 3 or more energy in play. Something to keep in mind, it isn't affected by weakness. So into like a lightning matchup, going for magnetic burst, it's not like you can do some cheeky, 180 off this thing into like a Miraidon to soften it up. You don't really have access to that. You could go for Power Gem, which does a flat 60 and doesn't have any text underneath it. So it's like, yeah, then it could do a bit more. But yeah, it's mostly in here just to kind of help out into like pre-evolutions, take some cheeky knockouts. If your opponent's trying to play a single prize game, you have the option to do that as well. And just softening up targets so Raging Bolt doesn't need to commit as many energy into them to be able to take those kills. Or KOs. We don't kill in Pokemon, we KO things. All right, but the rest of the deck, I feel like it's pretty standard stuff. You're seeing bosses orders in here, fairly low supporter counts. So we've only got one Iono for draw power. Professor Sada does drawing you into cards as well, getting you 3 cards after getting the energy in play, but Ogerpon's going to be drawing you cards, Greninja's drawing you cards, Fezzendipity's drawing you cards. So you don't need like massive draw support counts. Also having a lot of things to just dig through the deck, like trekking shoes. So you just look at a card, be like, oh, do I want this card? Nope. Ditch it, draw another card. Good. Earthen Vessel to get you into your energy retrieval to get you back into your energy after Raging Bolt's discarded it, Pokestop helping you dig through the deck and getting into key item cards as you need them, so like Pokestop, find shoes or find vessels. Yeah, you can get going pretty quick. Also, the fact that we only have one boss's orders might seem a bit alarming. Obviously, you want lots of Gust, but we're a very item-dependent deck, and Pokestop helps you get into those, so they are running Pokecatcher in here. You're gonna flip a coin. If it's heads, you get to Gust something into the active. So it's like, hey, I can use a supporter to get energy into play, and still potentially get Gust off. Also having Prime Catcher just to guarantee it. So yeah, you got some ways to play around with this. Raging Bolt and Ogerpon both being basic Pokemon as well does mean we can be playing Bravery Charm to boost up their health by 50, putting you outside of breakpoint numbers in some situations. Miraidon saw a very large showing at the World Championships, doing 220 damage. That's a little concerning since Ogerpon has 210 HP. So you chuck this on there, you're out of range for that. You can chuck it on your Fezzendippity, it's out of range on that. You chuck it on your Squawkabilly, it's not out of range of that, and they hit you for weakness, so it's irrelevant anyways. But you could do that in other matchups, I suppose. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Again, just in case you're watching this, James, hey buddy, how you going? How's Tony? Hope you guys are having a swell time over in Hawaii, and yeah, it is amazing to get to catch you on stream. In 5th place, we are saying Isiah Bradner, also on Regidrago Vstar. We've talked about this deck a few times. It looks pretty much identical to the other ones, except there's a Cleffa in here. So if you go second, you could put Cleffa in the active, use Grasping Draw for 0 energy, and draw until you have 7 cards in your hand. We've talked about Regidrago before. We don't need to go over it again. Also, I think they have Pokestop and the other builds didn't. So like you could be hitting your attackers off this and getting into item cards. All right, 4th place, we're seeing Wolpe, also on Regidrago Vstar. Cleffa's in here. Night Stretcher's in here. And yep, it's like the other ones. So Wolpe, congrats on getting 4th. Not gonna go into too much more detail about Regidrago Vstar though. It does what Regidrago Vstar does. 3rd place, we are seeing Jesse Parker piloting Miraidon EX. So Miraidon has the tandem unit ability. Once during your turn, you can search your deck for 2 basic lightning Pokemon and pop them onto your bench. So a great way to build up your board state. It can be getting you into another Miraidon and say a Raikou. And then that other Miraidon can get you into like an Iron Hands and a Zapdos. Like you can just fill up your board crazy fast while also having a very intimidating attack in Photon Blaster. You do 220 damage. You can't attack with this during the next turn, but you do have a lot of switching cards. Like you can use Switch Cart, you can use Prime Catcher, bounce them around. There's a Rescue Board in here, which you technically could chuck on here. It only has 1 retreat, so you could bounce that out of the active and just recur it. Be in a lot of, well, you get a lot of pivot potential with this deck. Also having a free retreater in Mew means you could just go like Switch Cart, well, Miraidon in the active, Switch Cart into Mew, free retreat Mew back into Miraidon, and just keep going. A great addition for this deck, which actually doesn't seem like they included it in this build, is the new Stadium. Academy at Night came out in Shrouded Fable, where it just lets you put a card from your hand on top of your deck. Like you just pop it on there, then you use Electro Generator, guaranteeing yourself into that piece. But it doesn't seem like they went for that, which is an interesting take. So yeah, I'd be curious as to why they didn't. But yeah, including Town Store as their stadium in this build means that you can be getting into your rescue board, you can be getting into your Forest Seal Stone, which means effectively Miraidon can get you into Raikou, Town Store can get you into Forest Seal Stone, Raikou can get you into anything from your deck. You also have Luminion V in here that can be using the Forest Seal Stone. Lots of potential in here. I feel like I'm kind of bouncing around the list though. So for the main attackers in here, let's shuffle this around a little bit. We're looking at Miraidon doing 220. You've got Iron Hands who has Arm Press 160. It's okay, but the main thing you're using it for is amp you very much, doing 120 damage, and when you take a knockout with this attack, you get to take 1 extra prize card. So 120 if you're taking out pre-evolutions. They normally only give up 1 prize, they don't have a lot of health, now they're giving you up 2 prizes. If you're able to soften up a 2-prizer, like Miraidon does 220 into, let's say, a Regidrago Vstar or a Charizard EX, and then Iron Hands follows up, you're getting 3 prizes off of those. So instead of having to go 2-2-2, you're like half hitting into something, taking it for 3 prizes, half hit into something, take it out for 3 prizes. You're having to do 4 attacks to get there, which is a little bit awkward, but most of your guys are only doing up to 220 damage, being the cap in this build. It's useful to be able to do that. Raikou V in here as well, having the fleet-footed ability, you can just chuck this in the active, draw a card. Not bad. Lightning Rondo doing a base damage of 20 more damage for each bench Pokemon, yours and your opponent's, so is capped at 220, similar to Miraidon, but the attack cost on here being lower can be really helpful. So if you only hit 1 energy off Electric Generator, it's, okay, I can put it on Miraidon or I can put it on Raikou. Well, if I put it on Raikou and attach for turn, I can at least get some damage on the board. It's a great option to be able to go into. The final attacker in here, well, technically there's other attackers, but final attacker you're likely to be using is Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. Its Seasoned Skill ability reduces the attack cost by 1 colorless energy for each prize card your opponent's taken. So in the late game, if they've taken 4 prizes, 1 energy, you can do 240. A little bit higher damage than Miraidon. If they've taken 5 prizes, like maybe you've snuck out a single prize Pokemon into the active, you can be attacking for free, which can be really helpful. And yeah, definitely a good threat to have on the board. Having 260 HP also can be outside of some breakpoint numbers, and being able to check a Bravery Charm on there to bring it up to 310 is a pretty bulky boy. The rest of the utilities in here though, I feel like we've talked about. Squawkabilly, Mew EX, Pheasantipity, very familiar with them. Radiant Greninja showing up in here as well. Lumineon V, we haven't seen it in any other decks yet. I'm sure if you're playing in the standard meta though, you're very familiar with this card. When you bench it, search your deck for a supporter, put it into your hand. It's a great way to guarantee pieces, like if you need Gust for game, grab yourself a Boss's Orders. If you're struggling with draw power, get a Research, or maybe you want to get into your Forest Seal, Stone, and Bravery Charm and an item like Electric Generator to get energy on the board. Well, you can just grab an Arven for that. I feel like you kind of want to keep Lumineon up your sleeve for the end game though, getting yourself into a Boss's Orders, because if you put it down too early, it's just an easy 2-prize KO for your opponents to take out. But most of your attackers are pretty soft anyways, like Raikou and Miraidon having 220 and 200 HP, they're not that big of a target. So it's not always the worst call benching it too early, but I don't know, I always play kind of on the side of caution. Having a Zapdos in here as well, having with the Lightning Symbol ability, your basic Lightning Pokemon's attacks are going to do 10 more damage, meaning that we can be pushing up a little bit higher, getting into slightly higher damage caps. Miraidon getting up to 230, Iron Hands getting up to 130 off Ampy very much, or 110 if we had to use a DTE on it, can be a relevant number. Also having Iron Bundle in here with the Hyper Blower ability, meaning that if it's on your bench, you can just go, I'm going to put this in the discard pile, and my opponent has to bounce their active to the bench and put something else into the active. So if there's something really hefty in the active or something shutting off your abilities, you can bounce it out. So great inclusion for the deck. Rest of the list though, I feel like it's pretty standard stuff, or I've kind of talked about it because we're going around the screen a little bit there. In second place, we are seeing Seinosuke Shiokawa. I hope I'm saying your name right. I mean no offense if I didn't. I'm trying my best. But yeah, he played Roaring Moon EX, like a pseudo-ancient box deck, because there is the single prize Roaring Moon in here, but it seems like more of a secondary attacker. They didn't have heaps of ancient cards in here to scale up Vengeance Fletching, which does a base damage of 70 and 10 more damage for each ancient card in your discard pile, but does give them a solid single prize attacking option to be able to go to in single prize matchups, or just to soften up targets and try and skew the prize trade. Your opponent's going to try and go 2-2-2, and you're going, no, I'm going to make you go 2-1-2-2 and play a 7-prize game. The Roaring Moon EX being the star of the show though, having Frenzied Gouging, 2 dark and a colorless, you get to just knock out your opponent's active Pokemon. You do have to do 200 damage to yourself, which is a little bit risky, but when you're taking a knockout, if they don't have something to follow up and KO into you, and then you're able to just keep going, they're going to be struggling. 2 Dark Energy is a little bit of an expensive cost to pay, but you have Dark Patch, so you can be getting Dark Energy into the discard pile, having this on the bench, Dark Patch to it, Professor Soda to it, and then attach for turn, and you're in a pretty good spot. Soda being able to get energy onto 2 of these on your bench, Dark Patch to 1, attach for turn, you basically have 1 attacker online ready to go, and then the following turn shouldn't be too far off getting a second one out as well. Dark Patch though, kind of the trade-off is it does need to be on the bench to be able to use it. Petulant EX just came out in Shrouded Fable though, and its ability Subjugating Chains lets you bounce a dark Pokemon from the bench into the active spot. You are going to poison them, which is a little bit risky, especially if you're going Frenzied Gouging where you're hurting yourself, but you're going to take 10 between turns, so it goes to your opponent, you take 10, comes back to you, you take 10, and then by that point you're either moving yourself out of the active with a switch card or you've been knocked out by your opponent, so it's kind of irrelevant. You're going to survive the between turns effect of the poison, but it does just mean that you can be using Dark Patch pretty consistently and just being able to bounce Pokemon into the active. Also seeing Pheasantipity in this deck, flip the script, solid card, or solid ability to be able to use for draw support, but since you are a dark Pokemon, you can be using Petulant to get this into the active, and you can be charging it up with Dark Patch as well, giving you a sniping potential to go, hey, I'm just going to take that little guy off your bench, or maybe Roaring Moon didn't use Frenzied Gouging, maybe it used Calamity Storm, which does a base damage of 100 or 120 by discarding a Stadium card in play, so 220, and then Pheasantipity can try and finish it off a little bit later. Definitely a interesting inclusion, and the fact that you have the option to go for those attacks is great. Also, Calamity Storm, 220, great number to be able to hit, especially seeing things like Miraidon go as far as they did in the tournament and seeing as much play as they did. It means you can take out Miraidons in one shot, you can take out Regidrago Vs in one shot, you could take out Ogerpons pretty easily as well. So just being able to charge this up quickly and being able to attack on your first turn in the game, going second, yeah, I can see why Roaring Moon EX went as far as it did in this tournament. The rest of the deck, it's pretty standard stuff though. We're also seeing Pokemon Catcher in here since you want to be using Soda as your supportive return most of the time, and it just gives you a way to be able to gust without having to rely on a supporter to do it. There is a Boss's Orders in here as well, and of course Prime Catcher. 4 counts of Pokestop means you're going to be finding your Prime Catchers and your Pokemon Catchers pretty consistently. Also being able to get into Trekking Shoes off of them, and then you Trekking Shoes, you see a Dark Energy, put it in a discard pile, keep digging, get into Dark Patch to your bench. Yeah, this deck goes fast, and I can see why this deck went far. And of course, the winner of the World Championships this year was Fernando Cifuentes with Iron Thorns EX. And that's dirty, I love it. This was a deck that I started theory crafting it before it even released, and seeing it win the World Championships, yeah, honestly sick. I love to see it. Iron Thorns ability Initialization means that when it's in the active spot, all of your Pokemon, or your opponent's Pokemon that have a rule box, they don't have abilities, unless they're future Pokemon as well. So like into opposing Iron Thorns EX, I guess you'd both still have Initialization, but it doesn't really do anything. Or like Iron Valiant EX would still technically have an ability. Other things though, they won't. Like Charizard EX, it evolves up, it doesn't get energy. Lugia Vstar, yeah, they're never getting Archeops into play. Ogerpons, they're not getting energy out. You get to bully people. Also, Miraidon, which we have been talking about quite a bit, it's technically a future Pokemon, but the Miraidon that gets 2 lightning Pokemon from your deck onto the bench, that one's not a future Pokemon. It came out before they started adding this onto cards, so you will be shutting that off. You're shutting their Raikou off, you're shutting their Squawkabilly off, their Luminions. Yeah, Iron Thorns is a bit of a bully. It doesn't do a lot of damage though, so there's a trade-off. You're going to be taking your time taking knockouts. Volt Cyclone does 140 damage, and you move an energy from this Pokemon onto one of your bench Pokemon, which isn't too bad, meaning you can get this charged up, you bounce energy off. If your opponent knocks this out, you've started charging something up on the bench, or you're most likely just using Turbo Energize early in the game. So you 1 energy on here, search your deck for 2 basic energy, start charging things up. Then once this one is charged up and attacking, you're bouncing energy off of it, getting multiples set up. Yeah, he's a bit of a bully. And just to bully people even more, to charge it up faster, there is Giovanni's Charisma, which puts an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon into their hand, and then an energy from your hand onto your active Pokemon. We also have Crushing Hammer, where you're flipping a coin and potentially discarding energy off your opponent just to make sure that, yeah, they're going to struggle to get energy in play. So that Charizard that we talked about, who's trying to accelerate energy, and we're saying no because of our ability. As they're manually attaching energy, we're saying no because we have a Hammer and Giovanni. It's a little bit dirty. Cancel and Clone in here just to shut off your opponent's active Pokemon's abilities. So if they do have something that comes up into the active and tries to turn off our ability to turn their abilities back on, we can shut them off, like Flutter Mane, I guess. But I feel like you just charge it up and attack it. Our Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon wouldn't be taking damage from Pokemon that have abilities. So depending on how they sequence that, like if they come into the active and then... Actually, how would that one work? I feel like I might be missing something here. Good card to have, but I feel like I'm missing a piece here. Also having Prime Catcher in here just for some solid gust. Penny to be able to recur our Iron Thorns, so we tank some hits, you scoop it up, you go into a fresh one, you put it back down on the bench, you start charging it up again. Your opponent's going to be really hating life. Colress's Tenacity, allowing you to get into a Stadium and an energy card from your deck, meaning we can grab Lost City and we can grab DTE to quickly charge ourselves up, or just a Lightning Energy to slowly charge ourselves up, but without having to reduce the damage output of the Iron Thorns. Iron Thorns attack, of course, needing double colorless and a Lightning, so a DTE and a Lightning and you're ready to go. Having Future Boost Energy Capsule in here is a way to negate the -20 from the DTE and also giving us free retreat on the Iron Thorns. So you can be eating some hits and moving around, forcing your opponent to have Gust if they're trying to half hit into you. Also having a Lost Vacuum to be able to remove some tool cards or a Stadium in a pinch. If they have Bravery Charm and keeping themselves outside of a 2-hit KO from you, you just go, well, I'm just gonna Lost Vacuum that away and you're back in range. Also having Energy Lotto to help you get into your DTEs or your Lightning Energies. But yeah, how do you guys feel that Iron Thorns took down the world? I like it. Honestly, I like it. It's an interesting deck and it's kind of nice seeing something a little bit more on the rogue side, showing that it has potential. Because like it's so often that you just say, oh well, Charizard's the best, oh Guardy's the best, and it's like no. In the right hands and with the right build, you can make most Pokemon put in work, and I feel like this World Championship has shown that. Regidrago's getting multiple showings in the top 8. We have Roaring Moon EX getting a showing in the top 8, which a lot of people thought was kind of a dead deck. Iron Thorns taking it down. There wasn't a single Charizard in the top. And I know when Dusk Noir and Dusclops came out, people were like, oh, Charizard, BDIF. Well, where is he? Where is he? I saw Rigatoni in the top 8. I didn't see Charizard, but that's just my view on this. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments down below, because happy to keep content like this kind of going, where we do cover the top 8 from regionals, but usually cover shenanigans and the top 8 from the budget build battles format. So if you're interested in that, there should be a video popping up on the screen right now. And if not, there's another video popping up YouTube thinks you'll like. Till next time though, stay golden, you Goombas.